All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Personnel Administration Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, May the 2nd, 2023. It's noon here in the council conference room in the county courthouse. And first, we'll do a call to order. And we'll note that, do we do roll here, or I can just say that
you can just say
that Councilmember Hawk is here, and Council Iverson is here, and Councilmember McKim is on his way. So we'll have all three here in just a moment. But as we have quorum, I do want to go on to the next item, which is the adoption of the agenda. And I'd like to ask the consent of Councilmember Hawk to move item number 5 to the top, as our judge here in the room needs to make it to court at the top of the hour.
Wonderful, and I'm sorry.
All right, hearing assent for that. Are there any other changes that you have to the agenda today, Councilmember Hawk? Hearing none, can we have a motion to adopt? I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion is adopted. We have the agenda adopted. So now we'll move on to the courts department. Lisa Abraham is here to talk about requests to create a new position for a court bailiff. What's going on here?
Okay, I usually have 2 part-time bailiffs. They share one job. So one works 35 hours in a pay cycle, the other works at 35. So combined, they're 1 part-time bailiff. We asked for that a few years back, and we wanted a full-time, and budget was very, very tight. So instead of getting a full-time with benefits, we were able to do 2 part-time using my hourly money, and that worked well. Back in, I think it was October, my 1 part-time bailiff has retired. I have tried to fill it. I've had 0 resumes received for a part-time bailiff. So we've been going on with just 1 part-time bailiff. He's informed me about 2 weeks ago that he is going to be stepping down this summer. So now I'm going to be down 1 person or 2 part-time bailiffs. So I am asking if we can go back and I can stop with my 2 part-time, actually get 1 full-time bailiff, because I'm sure that I'll be able to get some resumes to fill in that spot. So that's what we're trying to get, so that we don't shorthand it.
I certainly would like to move forward with this, and you have the job description, so you don't need another job description. So this really is, and I'm sorry you were waiting here, but this, I mean, I appreciate you coming to the PAC, but it sounds like it's more of a financial decision to be made by the entire council. So you already have your job description.
Yes.
And I encourage you to move forward as soon as possible.
And there's no reclassification here, correct?
No, but per our policy, all requests have to come to PAC.
I also have no issues here, and
I'm sure
Councilmember McKim is here.
Just say yes, you are.
And Commissioner McKim and Crosley are both my liaisons, and I forwarded this to them. And I know Commissioner Councilman Crosley did respond to me and said that she fully supports it, and that whatever I do, that's what to be really happy. And I haven't heard back from the candidate. I've heard no news is good news.
Yes, difficulty filling this even at a full time.
Okay.
So that we can quickly move forward with this. It's important to keep that job.
Yes.
I completely agree. Difficulty hiring part-time, wanting to go back to 1 full-time position. We have the job description, no classification change.
So my question is, so you need to have this added to your budget. So we'll need to move that to the council.
Great.
So, okay. So I can add that to the May 9th. I'll double check with Councilor Wilkes, but I don't see a problem of adding that request to the May 9th. So that you can add that to your budget, and we can amend the salary ordinance as well.
Okay. Perfect.
And Michelle, do we need a motion to that effect?
I did. I had a motion. Did I get a second? I asked if
I will second that motion.
So wait, what was the motion?
The motion was for them to quickly move forward and fill this slot with a full-time position. Okay. However, that is really a financial decision and not a tax decision.
All right, we have a motion and a second to send this quickly to council. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, and we'll see you at the Monroe County Council.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for moving us. I appreciate it.
Sorry, I was late.
All right. We'll go back to our agenda and we'll kick it over to the surveyor's office. We have Tron Enright Randolph here for a look back at something that we received from WIS. So you want to tell us about it?
Yes, absolutely. I have our GIS coordinator, Dr. John Baton, with us as well. He'll add some content to the end of this. Within the packet has kind of the breakdown of the job description and some recommendations and opinions of WISC, but that's for the public. If they would like to look at that, that's in the packet. Our intent is just to kind of talk about what we received from WISC, and we put together a couple of slides that Michelle will pull up for us, graciously enough.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Is that it?
Yep, that's it. Yes. And as that's there, and should I pause real quick? As no, just continue. So ultimately, the job descriptions and the revision. Let me take one step back. We're in the process of trying to create a GIS technician position and then revise the GIS coordinator to go in line with that. So what we received back as far as the job descriptions were pretty much in line with what we were hoping to receive. So that worked out well. So the GIS technician thing is moving smoothly. Now, we did try to reclassify the GIS coordinator, and then that's kind of where we kind of have this verbiage that we're using from the WIS recommendation. And what really comes down to is this hands-on versus work, which our goal was to try to classify it as an EXE classification. And they broke it down that, you know, they have hands-on duty. And well, I would ask the question, what exec role doesn't have a hands-on component to their job? So our goal here now is to just maybe move it back to an SO position, which our first job description that we could find was in 2007, and it was an SO. And in 2017, it moved from an SO to a classification because there was a goal to reduce the SOs. This position wasn't restructured until 2019 in the surveyor's office. And trust me, even back then as serving as chief deputy, if I knew that they were going to reclassify the coordinator from an SO to, I think it was a PAT 8-1 or 4, PAT 5, I would have came here and advised against it. I would have had no issue with talking about how important this role is back then as well. So moving forward, you know, we put some things together, and honestly, the GIS coordinator is the GIS administrator, you know, kind of / director for Monroe County, not a technician. And kind of this hands-on concept really makes it feel like they're calling the coordinator a technician. In other administrative duties is managing the continuity within departments and also recommending revisions to department heads and elected officials and their employees' job descriptions to preserve that continuity and that management of integrating GIS processes within those departments. So in my opinion, you know, they serve as a consultant and an advisor, which I'll let John speak a little more to after these next couple of slides. So with that, we have a slide, and don't get picture or price shocked on this one. This isn't what we're striving for. As you can see, averagely across the nation, a GIS director, and we're not going for a director, gets paid $91,000 and some a year. If you scroll down just a little, you see there's nationwide, and then Bloomington, their average is the 82, and we're still not even going for that. What we're looking for is quite a bit less than what is average as a GIS director in the city of Bloomington. And if we could kind of then jump to the next slide, And this is what we were thinking, is we could reclassify it as an SO, which means we don't necessarily need to take it back to WISC unless the Pat thinks that should be the next step. There has been other positions that have been created recently that have had a different recommendation of the classification, but has been tied to a different classification, so it's in line. And that's what we're going to recommend council to do, is that we reclassify as a SO, but we tie it to an exec A position. And as you can see right now, the GIS coordinator is a Pat D, and we're looking at the exec A. So it's not a super huge increase, but it does come with fixed bump ups, and it does compensate them for their supervisory role, but also what they're doing now. We revised their job description to be in line with what they're doing now, and the job description came back quite nicely. So we were very comfortable with that. And then this isn't part of the slide because I figured I'm not going to put my concerns on paper for everyone, but I did put a couple of bullet points here, and new responsibilities, but no change in compensation. That doesn't seem about right. Attrition and retention, that's huge. And we're expanding our GIS across the board. So, you know, to have somebody that has the expertise and skill sets as our current coordinator is needed. And that prestigeness, we can't compensate every employee here by paying them more. But what we can do is recognize them for their expertise and the value that they give to the community. And they serve in an executive role, in my opinion, because they're working with numerous departments across the board. And sometimes knowing that they're recognized for their efforts and for their skill sets is almost as important as a pay bump occasionally. And I'm not going to speak for them, but I've attended many conferences, and everyone knows it's becoming more and more difficult to attract qualified personnel. And one of the discussion points at a lot of these conferences is the culture and the climate of the workspace, in who your supervisor is, you know, what your day-to-day work is, what your title is, and, you know, to basically keep them lumped in a category where I feel like they're being more described as a technician versus a coordinator, I think diminishes, you know, the way you feel about your role and your job, and knowing that you're working in more of a high level executive role and not being recognized, I think over time isn't enjoyable. So we need to do something to somewhat kind of change that culture that we have here with how people are being classified and what job they're truly doing on a day-to-day basis. And that's kind of where my comments are. And then I wanted to pass it to John, just because he prepared some things to really talk about how he is working both with a hands-on component, but also outside of that in more an administrative role.
Cool, thanks, Tron. So yeah, when I interviewed for this position in August, I remember specifically telling Tron that I'm not a technician, I'm a problem solver. And so I do GIS, right? But I do more things than that, right? And so the cool thing about my job that I love is that I create kind of synergy between departments and between offices. I let them understand how their work impacts other departments' work and how there's kind of a relationship between what they're doing. I also serve not just as somebody who's making maps and helping departments manage data, but I actively advise and consult departments consistently. And these aren't just departments and offices, these are council as well as commissioners as well, trying to figure out ways to present data to the public in a transparent way, as well as a way that's digestible, right? I do this with the sheriff's office currently, working on a public facing as well as an internal facing dashboard for the sheriff's department as well as the jail. I'm doing this with the assessor in terms of public facing dashboard for assessment values. I worked with the recorder's office with the racial covenants project, which actually got quite a bit of steam, right? One of my big recommendations with the recorder's office was not just showing them how to integrate this into a interactive website, but also advocating for them to make a story map, which allowed the public to actually understand the history of racial covenants, as well as how people today can have a racial covenant removed from their property. I'm also doing this with a number of various stakeholders. Monroe Public Library, for instance, I'm working directly with the adult librarian. on a project called Hoosier Character that has broad-ranging kind of outreach across the county, as well as, for instance, I just made a dashboard map the other day for the 2024 solar eclipse that's going to be running through Monroe County, which is going to be bringing in a ton of visitors here, right? So this is all things that are kind of impacting these kind of broader stakeholders. Beyond that, I also am actively doing contract reviews for the county, and not just for the surveyor's office where I'm housed in, but for the Parks Department, for instance, reviewing what they're actually signing on to make sure that we're getting the best deal for a dollar for Monroe County. I'm also hiring or identifying, interviewing, and hiring interns, not for the surveyor's department, but for other departments. So for highway, for instance, I just had an intern who helped us clear up some data that highway had. So again, my work is hands-on, right? I do GIS stuff, but I'm primarily in my position an advisor and a consultant and a problem solver for GIS, but also broader concerns for Monroe County. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
And I would like to just add one other thing. He's also an educator. So we are teaching people how to become hands-on as much as he is hands-on. So I just wanted to make sure that I made that point. And that's it. I know our next steps to council, but is there anything you would need for us to maybe better present our points, illuminate why we feel so strongly about reclassifying this to an SO, or would you like us to go back through WIS to see if we could refine the job description a bit more to gain that classification? They may have gave it to us just if we were asking for it, but we asked for the executive position and they said,
What do you think? What are your thoughts, feelings?
Well, I will say that based on the definition of executive in the WIS system, I don't think the EXE classification is correct. I think PAT or WIS was correct in saying that it is more of a PAT type position. Now, that said, particularly highly skilled technical positions sometimes don't fit well in terms of salary. And so I get that. And I'd be much more amenable to actually what I think you're proposing, which is an SO, but tying it to an EXE salary rather than trying to shoehorn it into an EXE, which it just isn't. And I mean, I'm literally right now looking up their definition of EXE. And so I having read that, I stand by that comment. So, I mean, I'm definitely open to having the council consider that salary, the salary tied to an EXEA, just because of the difficulty in recruiting and retaining highly skilled GIS professionals. So I get the challenge there. I encounter that in my day job as well. It is a highly specialized. I mean, even within the realm of IT professionals, it's very specialized compared to that as well. So that's my general thought. Is I'm at least open to having it go to council.
I really respect your opinion. I know that you're knowledgeable about what this gentleman is doing in his everyday work here for the county. I would like to make certain that we didn't just put it in as that slot, because he might be far more have the abilities to do a lot of these things that if he decides to move on to California or wherever your next slot might be, there might not be someone else who has his abilities. So we might, if it's ever open again, I think we should readdress this, because this is really a very different position than what you're going to find throughout county government. It seems to me, but I will rely on your expertise, Jeff.
Well, and I wonder if we might not just be able to bolster the argument, get some data on kind of like what Tron already presented, but just in other GIS coordinators in Indiana. Because I mean, it is a position that's probably more common in cities than counties, I would guess. But I think it would be useful to see kind of where that proposed salary fits in other Midwestern and city GIS coordinators.
Because it isn't, like I said, to do what he does, he has to do it here in Monroe County.
Right.
I mean, he might love living here, but on the other hand, if he can make $20,000 more living someplace else.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about comparing to Chicago. I mean, what is what does the Fishers GIS coordinator make, or Noblesville, or other
City of Bloomington, yeah.
Yeah, city.
We have to continue to look back to see what is it working for, because while he may be really worth all of those dollars, can we really afford to have all of those services? And that's the budgetary question.
Yeah.
Michelle, as council administrator, do you have anything to add about the WIS process or in regards to this?
When we received the recommendation back, and Tron did reach out. So I reached out to WIS with regards to why was this classified as a patentee versus the EXE that he had requested. And they said it was because he does a lot of hands-on type of duties, and that they said that in their opinion, the EXE, is more administrative, and that kind of thing, and they direct the work rather than hands-on. So, which is what Councilor McKim alluded to there. So, but other than that, they said if he, really wanted to reclassify, he would have to show that it would be more administrative, this kind of thing to get it to the EXE. But if you're happy with the job description and it reflects accurately what he's doing, I don't see how we could proceed with taking it back to WIS. So I do think that just moving on to council is, the best recommendation.
Yeah, I think the salary argument you've got is much stronger than the classification argument.
Right, and I'll just say one thing, because I've worked with a nonprofit, the Indiana Geographic Information Council, which was part of helping create the Geospatial Act, and the Indiana Office Geographic Information Office, which is actually a appointed position, and it's part of the Department of Technology. And through there, we have a lot of these discussions, and I think that a lot of what's going on in the modern day is GIS is more extensively used across the board, and the value of that is now just being built and recognized. And I absolutely agree with all the comments. I'm not too concerned about pushing back on, the WIS recommendation. If we could move with the SO, and I will say that I would say a lot of his work is directing and educating people of how to perform their duties so it's kind of an interesting argument. And then the final comment I have is, to your point, it's kind of a double-edged sword, if you will, or axe, if you will, because we don't want to tie it just to Doctor. I don't know if I want to. I call him John, and he prefers John, but
I got in trouble last time for not using the term doctor. Yeah.
I think the last name was mispronounced.
It's okay. I'm sorry, I'm both accounts.
But we don't want to tie it just to the person, because let's say he does find a different role or position. We still want to bring someone with that same level of expertise in here. So, to classify it and tie it into that, they're going to feel like, they're identified somewhat as a exec, but they're a special occupation, and we could attract and maybe retain someone with that same skill set. So it works kind of in both facets. Yes, has a great set of skills and expertise, but we want to make sure if we ever lose that, we have the ability to bring that back into the county. And one other final thing, and this was from discussions with other things, is they said I should really harp on the fact that if you look at the SOs, we have a PE up there, and they're really good with AutoCAD and other very advanced computer applications. That's exactly what he's working on with ARC Pro and on the ARC Online. So, there's already job descriptions classified as SO that still carry that same level of expertise with complicated software programs and such. So I just wanted to add that, because I forgot to mention that through the conversation.
And I think that's your strongest argument is for an SO. I would not even try to push the EXE. I mean, educating is not the same thing as directing.
Right.
It just isn't. But this, like I said, I think the salary argument for a highly skilled professional position is that's in demand is your best, is your strength.
Okay, thank you.
Any comments? All right, so before I ask for a motion, I think the horse is out of the barn here. I think the value that you've shown that you can provide to Monroe County and the citizens with the dashboards that you created is already, I think, changed the way we've thought about how we can visualize and interpret data. So the value that is here is something I think we're going to need to invest in the future. That's pretty clear to me. So that being said, is there a motion on this item for the surveyor's office?
I move that we forward this to the county council, a positive recommendation for making this position an SO.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I guess we'll ask for a roll call vote. All those in favor say of this motion say aye.
Aye. But that's not one.
Sorry. All right, so we have 3 ayes. Are there any opposed? All right, the motion passes on a vote, not a roll call, but on a vote. Is that okay? As I'm trying to unloose my tongue.
And I'll do the same, and I'll make sure it's okay and put it on the May 9th.
Well, we're gonna hope for June.
Oh, June?
Yeah, there's some other moving things, and I think June puts everything in a good place with other discussions ongoing about how we're going to deal with expanding our staff and
do you want the GIS technician moved to June as well?
Yes, both of them. I think that is more appropriate. We're going to keep
better to consider everything.
Yeah, I'm just what day in June it is.
Oh, what day in June? Do you have vacation coming up in June?
Yep,
I do.
I can tell you.
And I have vacation in May, so and there's another
June
component.
the 13th is the regular session, and June the 27th is the work.
Yeah, I think I'm here for that.
Could you work with Kim on that offline? That way we can get to the other departments.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
We'll reach out to you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
No, I'm not gonna leave till the meeting's over.
Oh, well.
Grab my
You know me, I leave when I get good rest. That's
When you're parking meter runs. Oh, actually, you're not on the meter. So
commissioner's spot. And I don't even know how to go back out of it because the arm is down.
But you can just get out.
Yeah, you can go out the outway.
You push a button right now.
No college, there's no one.
Was up and I'd gone around several times and I finally thought that arm's up, I'm pushing this.
We're good.
Well, we are fortunate to have Angie Purdy here because we're talking about the Employee Services Department. How is that for a transition? And another WIS recommendation has come before us. What's going on here?
Well, first of all, I'm going to apologize because clearly Kim and Michelle sent this out to us, myself, later in April, and I didn't see it. And so that's why I wasn't here when we first were supposed to start. I'm actually going to request that we table it. And the reason for that is in an email to Michelle, the senior consultant for WIS makes a comment that if this position moves into the EXE classification, it would need to be more of a department head type position, or we would also need to also review the commissioner's administrator position for reclassification lower if the personnel administrator is taking on some of the duties. So I feel like they didn't really know my position, and obviously I don't want my position to be lowered. I'm trying to put that out there. But I do think that them actually making those words, stating that those words, but they didn't look at the true organization and relationship between the commissioner's administrator and what would be the personnel administrator. So what I'd like to do, if what PAC is amenable.
Amenable, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, we got you.
All right.
I do have a question
Sure.
before, if you're moving to, if you're asking us to table it.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a question about the backup payroll. I'm very concerned about that.
I have an answer for you.
That, I mean, you have been, in the past, a backup payroll person, and then this job description came back and you weren't going to be the backup. So then I'm calling around saying, okay, but where's the backup and how are they going to learn to be the backup if they aren't in that office and so forth? So I think we have questions of the auditor's office to be answered.
Well,
It sounds like you have an answer.
yeah.
And you know, and
We would like, Angie and I have discussed this in the past, you know.
So we discussed it
With
Kathy.
Kathy, we've discussed with the auditor as well, and the past month or so that I've been doing payroll, we've determined that there are some internal controls that should be in place. Having a payroll backup in another office doesn't necessarily, there's no way that I can oversee that person when they have duties that someone else is assigned to them. So a discussion that we've had between Angie, the auditor, and I are that we would like to request a new position in the employee services department who would serve as that payroll backup while also providing a lot of internal controls for the other positions that are already there and providing some support to us to be able to be more effective and efficient.
And see, and from the get-go, I've been concerned about the internal control, and this sounds like it's moving it even further into more concern for me, because if payroll is ultimately reporting to commissioners, I mean, because payroll reports to you and you report to commissioner's administrator and she reports to commissioners. So where's the internal control there? And I've said that from the get-go, so it's not, you know, it shouldn't surprise you that I'm saying that.
In the auditor's office, the payroll administrator, the backup person, they are processing payroll, but the auditing of payroll is still happening in the auditor's office.
You're saying it's being audited by the claims department?
It's being audited by the financial department, the internal auditor and the newly created
You're
position.
saying Bree audits all of the payroll?
Bree does not. The internal auditor and the new assistant financial
which we don't have Bill yet.
Well, I mean, the person's still there and they've been.
So the internal control person, it works odd hours the last I saw. She's like going to school.
She's a full-time position.
She's a full-time employee, and Bree was that person.
Full-time, but not 8 to 5 or whatever.
I mean, the position is a full-time position, and that person's been in there a short period of time.
I'm just want to make sure that we're covered. If we don't do anything else, county government has got to get the payroll.
I mean, they've really done a great job auditing in the past, 6 or 8 months of really helping, really taking on that.
Kim, do you want to?
I guess I'm just saying, if we're going to table this, when you come back, you can come back with kind of a written description of how the payroll process would work, including addressing all the internal controls questions.
Including the auditor's response, because it would.
Yes, and then concurrence from the
It seems to me, and even on the auditor's page, says she does the payroll. I don't know if you ever look at the auditor's page.
On the website?
I mean, we
can fix that, but I'd like
regardless, I'm trying to see how many counties do we have someone outside of the auditor's office doing payroll. That would, if we're saying 50% of the counties do or whatever, I think we should look at that, just because we need to see what's the auditor's job duties and what she required to be responsible for.
Well, it sounds to me like we have some more thinking to do on this. Right. And it also sounds like Councilmember Kim was trying to make a motion.
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, I move that we table the employee services department request until further notice.
And bring the auditor in at the same time.
And I just want to add that the very fact that payroll is actually going to be, if there's a different department who's actually going to be auditing it, is much greater of an internal control than when it's all within the same department. That is the whole concept of internal controls, is that you have a separate set of eyes that are not going to be responsive to me.
Exactly what I thought internal control should be in the county council's office.
Real quick, we have a motion on the floor. I'm going to offer a second. That way the motion is on the floor. Is there more discussion on this? I just want to make sure that we're doing everything all right here.
I think they know what we'd like to see.
Ready for the
Let's vote. All those in favor of tabling, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here.
Sorry for my walking in.
It's election day. It's a weird day.
Yeah, like I said, I thought this was a hard line because it's pretty hard.
I called Michelle yesterday to say, hey, aren't we closed? So anyway, yeah. All right, we have one more department here with us today. So let's kick it over to the Youth Services Bureau. We've got a request for review and reclassification for a data specialist. What's going on here?
Yeah, so this position, I'm Vanessa from Youth Services Bureau, and I apologize. Our data specialist was supposed to be here as well. She's sick with a stomach flu, so she won't be present today. So this is a newer position within our department. Initially, when it was created, we looked at the only other position that was similar in the county, which was within the jail, and it was classified as a Pat A. And so we kind of worked off of that job description and what we anticipated this position would be doing. As we've now had a year to reevaluate the duties and the expectations, we've realized that with all of that and the increased workload of this position, the fact that it does have an educational requirement attached to it, that we would like to ask for a review and reclassification of potentially from a Pat A to a Pat C for this position. One of the great things is our integration of the new Quest database, which works very nicely with probation in the courts, but it also allows us to be able to spit out accurate data, which we have not been able to do in the past. There's been a lot of hand counting and highlighting and chicken scratch, and this position will be able to quickly provide these data reports and statistics that we request of her, in addition to customization of the request database, which requires a lot of kind of internal coding that she has been able to learn, and a lot of as far as new employee orientation pieces where counselors have certain access to databases versus shelter staff has access to databases, and all of the troubleshooting that has to happen within those that TSD cannot help us with. This is also going to be under the purview of this responsibility and this new job. So we've had about a year to kind of look at it and realize that the job description is not actually accurate to what's being done. So we've made revisions on that. This employee, because she's detail oriented and our data specialist did a study or did some research online and was able to find some of the scoring tools that WIS has used in the past and provided that as an addendum for a recommendation, just a further justification of why we think it should be reclassified up to a Pat C.
All right, Ms. Schmidt, thank you. Are there questions from Pat?
I know this is a more of a council question, but this position is paid entirely through the special purpose lit.
Yes. It would seem to me that we have to be very cautious about that, because at some point in time, when we added the extra on there so they would get more, we increased the tax rate. We were told at the time, if it brought in more than what their mission was at the time, that we could reduce it. And I don't know about anybody else, but many of us have been thinking about reducing a little bit and capturing some over there for the jail, whatever. So we have to be careful not to think that that's a non-ending growing source of income. I'm not saying I'm in favor of that. I'm just saying it's one of those things we have to look at.
Michelle, do you have any insights on this item?
No, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They waited for the year to reevaluate and they are bringing it back. So, they followed the process perfectly.
Excellent. All right. I think, again, this is one of those data positions. We've heard two of these today. And I think, the public seems to be wanting data and knowing more data, and it makes sense that the Quest is working with other departments, which I like. I like reducing those silos. I think that's really important. So is there a motion on the floor?
Yes, I move that we forward this, the updated job description for the data specialist, Youth Service Bureau to WIS for classification.
A motion, do we have a second?
I do, but I would like to add on to there that the charge from WIS should be charged back to the Youth Services Bureau if possible, since they do have more dollars in their funds.
That's what
I mean,
they certainly do have a balance that is enviable by.
I mean, they're very happy over
Yes.
there, so.
I'll have to check and see if they have a contract, kind of thing. So
Sure,
we'll
they
have
have
to-
some professional services and contracting line.
We have a professional services line.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we have a motion, a unique motion, and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
All right, lastly on the agenda, we have our minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Any issues that any of you have? Hearing none, those are approved and we are adjourned.